The deep hum of the ship's engines filled the command bridge of the Dauntless as it patrolled the outer edges of human space. Commander Jack Russell sat in his chair, his eyes growing tired from watching endless streams of data scroll across his screen. The Earth Defense Force had assigned his ship to monitor this quiet sector for 3 months now. Nothing ever happened here. Jack rubbed his eyes and reached for his coffee mug. The bitter liquid had gone cold hours ago, but he drank it anyway. 6 years in space had taught him to never waste resources, even bad coffee. "Commander, I'm picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Olivia Grant, her fingers moving quickly across her communications panel. Her brown hair was tied back in a neat bun, her face lit by the blue glow of her screen. "What kind of strange?" Jack stood up and walked to her station. Around them, the other bridge crew members continued their work, but he noticed how they all slowed down to listen. "A signal, sir. Weak and coming from very far away. It doesn't match any known patterns in our database." Olivia adjusted some controls, and a soft, pulsing sound filled the bridge. It had an odd rhythm to it, rising and falling in a way that felt deliberate. Jack leaned closer to the screen. "Is it one of ours?" "No, sir. Not human. Not from any known alien species in our records either." "Can you clean it up?" Olivia shook her head. "It's heavily distorted by solar radiation. I'll need time to work on it." "Make it your top priority." For 3 days, the Dauntless continued its patrol route, while Olivia worked on the mysterious signal. The crew buzzed with excitement. This was the most interesting thing to happen in months. Some bet it was just space noise. Others hoped for first contact with a new alien race. On the morning of the 4th day, Olivia called an emergency meeting on the bridge. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but there was an energy in them that made Jack sit up straight. "I've decoded it," she said, her voice slightly shaky. She tapped her tablet and a series of symbols appeared on the main screen at the front of the bridge. "It's a message, and it's definitely not a friendly hello." Jack studied the strange shapes and patterns. "What does it say?" "It's an SOS." Olivia pressed another button, and the alien symbols transformed into English text. "From a species called the Narani." The bridge fell silent as everyone read the translated message. Jack felt his skin grow cold despite the warm temperature of the ship. "They're being hunted down and killed," said Security Chief Diana Moore, her usually tough expression softening with shock. "Their whole civilization, the Dominion," read Jack aloud from the screen. "That's what they call the ones attacking them?" Olivia nodded. "From what I can tell, the Dominion is a group of advanced alien species. They've already destroyed 15 Narani planets." She pulled up images that had been attached to the message. The crew stared in horror at pictures of burning worlds. Massive. Ships firing weapons that cracked the surfaces of planets and the small, bird-like Narani people fleeing in simple spacecraft. "The Narani weren't even a threat," said Olivia. "They were farmers and artists who just started exploring space. Their crime was settling on worlds that the Dominion wanted for themselves." Admiral Frank Miller, who had been quietly listening, from the back of the bridge, finally spoke up. He was an older man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "These coordinates," he said, pointing to numbers at the bottom of the message. "This is beyond our territory. Way beyond." Jack turned to face him. "Sir, they asked for us specifically. They've been watching Earth broadcast for decades. They think we can help them." "But why us?" Diana asked, crossing her arms. "We've only been in space for 60 years. There must be older, more powerful civilizations out there." Dr. Henry Clark, the ship's xenobiologist, stood up from his station. He was a tall, thin man who usually kept to himself in the ship's labs. "I think I know why," he said. He tapped his own tablet, and new information filled the screen. The Narani included this data package about different types of planets. Look at how they classify Earth. Henry pointed to a chart with various colored dots representing worlds. Jack's eyes widened. "Class 12? What does that mean?" "It means Earth is what they call a death world," Henry explained. "Most intelligent life evolves on safe planets with mild climates, few predators, and stable environments. Earth, with its earthquakes, hurricanes, predators, diseases, and extreme temperatures, is considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards. The crew exchanged confused looks. "And that makes us special?" asked Olivia. Henry nodded. "According to this data, species from Deathworlds are rare. We're stronger, faster, and more resilient than most aliens because we evolved in harsh conditions. We can survive injuries, climate extremes, and radiation levels that would kill others instantly. We're tough," Diana said with sudden understanding. "To them, we're practically superheroes," Henry confirmed. "The Narani believe that only Deathworlders like us stand a chance against the Dominion." Admiral Miller walked to the front of the fore bridge, his boots making heavy sounds on the metal floor. He looked at each crew member's face before speaking. "So a peaceful race is being wiped out, and they've asked Earth for help because they think we're the only ones tough enough to save them." He stared at the images of destruction on the screen. Jack stood up straighter. "What are your orders, sir?" Miller was quiet for a long moment. Outside the ship's windows, stars gleamed like distant promises. Finally, he turned to face them all. "Lieutenant Grant, send a message to Earth Command with everything we've learned. Tell them we've made first contact with the Narani, and that we've received an urgent request for aid against an unknown hostile force." His eyes hardened as he made his decision. "And tell them that the Dauntless is responding to this distress call." The crew's surprised murmurs filled the bridge. "Sir," Jack said, "Earth Command might order us to wait for diplomats or—" "Sometimes you have to act, Commander," Miller interrupted. "If this Dominion is real and as powerful as the Narani claim, humanity needs to know what we're dealing with. Besides," he added, looking again at the desperate message on the screen, "when someone sends an SOS, decent people answer." Jack nodded and turned to the helm. "Plot a course to these coordinates, maximum speed." As the Dauntless changed direction and its engines powered up to full strength, Jack couldn't help but wonder, were humans really as special as the Narani thought? And if they were, would it be enough against an enemy capable of destroying entire worlds? Behind him, the images of burning planets continued to glow on the screen, a stark reminder of what was at stake. The journey to the Narani coordinates took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of preparation, training, and wondering what they would find. The Dauntless did not travel alone. 2 other Earth vessels joined them, the Intrepid commanded by Captain Samantha Rodriguez and the Valiant under Captain Alan Wright. Jack stood at the bridge window watching the stars blur as the ship moved at high speed through space. The weight of their mission pressed on his shoulders. He had never expected to be humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization in danger. 2 minutes to arrival, announced the pilot, her fingers steady on the controls. Jack turned to Admiral Miller. "Sir, are we ready for this?" The older man's face was calm, but Jack noticed the tight grip he had on his chair's armrest. "No one is ever ready for first contact, Commander. We just do our best." The 3 Earth ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the same time. Before them stretched a massive gas giant, swirling with storms of orange and red. Several small moons orbited the planet like tiny guards. "No signs of the Dominion," reported Diana from her security station. "No ships detected besides our own." "The signal said to approach the 3rd moon," Olivia reminded them. "They're hiding there." Slowly, the small fleet moved toward a gray, cratered moon. Its surface was barren and lifeless, pockmarked with impact craters and deep ravines. The perfect place to hide. "There," said Jack, pointing to the screen. A faint energy reading flickered on the surface. "That must be them." The 3 Earth ships landed a safe distance from the energy signal. They touched down on the dusty surface, sending up clouds of gray powder. Jack led the first contact team, which included Olivia, Diana, Henry, and Admiral Miller. They wore spacesuits designed for unknown environments and carried translator devices built using the Narani language samples from the distress call. "Remember," Jack said as they walked across the moon's surface, "these people have lost almost everything. They're scared, desperate, and putting their last hopes in us. Let's not make them regret it." They followed the energy signal to a large crater. At first, Jack saw nothing but gray rocks and dust. Then, as they approached the center, The ground seemed to shimmer. A hidden ship appeared as its camouflage system deactivated. The Narani vessel was smaller than Jack had expected, about half the size of the Dauntless. Its design was graceful, with curved lines that reminded him of bird wings. But he could also see damage, burn marks along one side, and hastily repaired sections. A door opened in the side of the ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, figures emerged. The Narani were unlike any alien life form humans had imagined. They stood about 5 feet tall, with slender bodies covered in feathers that shimmered with blues, greens, and purples. 4 delicate arms extended from their torsos, ending in hands with 3 long fingers each. Their heads were avian-like with large expressive eyes that glowed with an inner light. Their beaks were short and rounded, more like a parrot's than an eagle's. There were 12 of them. Just 12. 12 survivors, whispered Olivia, the reality of their genocide hitting her hard. From billions. The Narani approached cautiously. The one in front wore a simple silver band around its neck. It stopped a few feet away from the humans and raised all 4 hands in what seemed like a peaceful gesture. "I am Ambassador Kirita," said a voice through the translators. "Last diplomat of the 17 worlds of Narani." The translator gave the voice a soft, musical quality. Admiral Miller stepped forward. "I am Admiral Frank Miller of Earth. We received your distress call and have come to offer assistance." The ambassador's feathers rippled in what might have been relief or fear, Jack couldn't tell. "You came. You really came." Kirita's voice trembled. "We had almost lost hope." "We need to get inside," Diana interrupted, scanning the sky with a worried expression. "We're exposed out here." The ambassador nodded quickly. "Yes, please. The Dominion has patrols in this system. We must not be seen." Inside the Narani ship, Jack was struck by how different it was from human vessels. The walls were curved and smooth, with living plants growing in special chambers. Soft light came from glowing panels that seemed to pulse with the ship's energy. Despite the beauty, he also noticed the signs of a desperate escape. Packed storage, containers, makeshift repairs, and the exhausted looks of the crew. The Narani seemed just as fascinated by the humans. They kept a careful distance, their feathers fluttering when any human moved too quickly. "Forgive our caution," said Kirita as they gathered in what appeared to be a meeting room. "We have never encountered Deathworlders before. The conditions of your evolution are terrifying to us." Jack exchanged glances with his team. "Deathworlders? Your world, Earth. It is classified as a Class 12 Deathworld in our records. Such planets are rare and extremely dangerous." The ambassador's large eyes blinked rapidly. "The gravity alone would crush my bones. The oxygen levels would poison me. The temperature variations would kill me within hours." Jack tried to appear less threatening, keeping his movements slow and his voice calm. "We received your distress call. We need to know more about the Dominion if we're going to help you." Kirita touched a panel on the table, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed 5 different alien species, each with distinct appearances. One looked like tall gray humanoids with 6 eyes. Another resembled something between an insect and a reptile, with armored skin and multiple limbs. The others were equally strange to human eyes. "The 5 powers of the Dominion," explained Kirita. "They control nearly a third of this galactic arm. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." The ambassador's voice dropped lower. "They do not conquer. They simply eradicate any they deem unworthy of the planets they want." "And they decided the Narani were unworthy?" asked Samantha, her face showing the disgust she felt. "We settled 15 worlds over 3 centuries," said another Narani who introduced himself as head scientist Miro. "Peaceful worlds. We built farms, libraries, schools. Then the Dominion came. They said the worlds we had terraformed were marked for their future use. They gave us 1 week to leave." "1 week to evacuate 15 planets?" Henry asked in disbelief. "That's impossible." "That was their intention," said Kirita. "When the week ended, they began the cleansing, planet by planet. They made us watch the first 3 so we would understand there was no mercy. Images appeared on the holographic display, cities burning, ships fleeing, and massive Dominion vessels, firing weapons that cracked the very crusts of planets. "How did you survive?" Diana asked softly. "A few ships escaped. We scattered, trying to find help." Kirita's feathers drooped. "The other survivors. We have lost contact with most of them." Alan, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. "And you think we can stop them? Our fleet is powerful, but we're just one species against 5 advanced civilizations." Kirita moved closer to the humans, studying them with those large, glowing eyes. "You don't understand what you are to the rest of the galaxy. Your kind evolved on a world that would instantly kill most sentient life. Your bodies can survive radiation, toxins, and trauma that we cannot imagine." The ambassador pointed to Jack's arm, where a small scar showed from an old training accident. "You heal from injuries that would be fatal to us. You can endure in environments that would kill us in seconds. Your digestive systems can process foods that would be deadly poison to most species." Miro added, "In our historical records, there are legends of other Deathworld species. They are always formidable warriors." The humans exchanged uncomfortable glances as the truth dawned on them. The Narani weren't looking for allies in the traditional sense. They were looking for protectors, for warriors, for weapons. "To us," Kirita said quietly, "you are like beings from nightmare worlds, but today we need nightmares to fight monsters." The 3 Earth ships raced back to human space, carrying the Narani survivors and all the information they had gathered about the Dominion. Admiral Miller sent their report ahead, knowing that what they had discovered would change humanity's view of its place in the galaxy forever. When they reached Earth, the planet was already buzzing with the news. For the first time in history, all major governments had come together to address an alien threat. The small fleet that had gone to meet the Narani was greeted by dozens of military vessels now in orbit around Earth. Jack watched from the bridge of the Dauntless as they approached the blue-green planet he called home. It looked so peaceful from space, so normal. It was hard to believe that most alien species saw it as a hellish death world. "What do you think will happen?" Olivia asked, standing beside him at the window. Jack shook his head. "I don't know, but I don't think we can ignore this. The Dominion won't stop with the Narani." "You think they'll come for us next?" "I'm sure of it," he replied. "We're expanding into space. Sooner or later we'd settle on a world they want. And then—" He didn't need to finish the sentence. They had both seen the images of burning Narani planets. Earth's governments debated for weeks while more data was collected. Scientists interviewed the Narani survivors, learning everything they could about the Dominion's technology, tactics, and weaknesses. Military leaders reviewed the footage of Dominion attacks, studying their weapons and ships. What finally tipped the scales was a discovery made by Dr. Henry Clark and the Narani scientist Miro. They had been analyzing Dominion communication, signals captured by the Narani ship during its escape. "Look at this," Henry said, pointing to a star map displayed on the screen in the United Earth Defense Council chamber. Red dots marked planets already cleared by the Dominion. Yellow dots showed planets scheduled for sanitation. Several of those yellow dots fell along routes that human colony ships were already using. "These are worlds we've been scouting for. Settlement," Jack explained to the council members. "The Dominion has already marked them for their own use." "How soon?" asked the president of the North American Union, her face grim. Miro, whose feathers trembled slightly under the gaze of so many humans, stepped forward. "Based on their usual expansion patterns, they would reach these systems within 5 to 10 of your Earth years." "So we have time," said the Chinese premier. "No," countered Admiral Miller. "We have a window to prepare. The Dominion doesn't know. We're aware of them yet. Once they realize the Narani contacted us, they'll accelerate their plans." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. "They destroyed 15 planets because the people living there were in their way," Jack said into the silence. "They'll do the same to us without hesitation." 3 days later, the United Earth Defense Council made its decision. For the first time in human history, all nations agreed to combine their military forces under a single command structure. Factories, worldwide, were retooled for war production. Scientists worked around the clock to integrate Narani technology with human weapon systems. Special forces began training to fight in various alien environments. Jack, now promoted to captain of the Dauntless, found himself leading one of several vanguard forces. Their mission? Strike the nearest Dominion outpost and assess their capabilities up close. "We still don't know enough about how they fight," he explained to his crew as they prepared to depart. "We need to see them in action, learn their weaknesses." The strike force consisted of 5 ships, the Dauntless, the Intrepid under Samantha, and 3 new vessels equipped with the latest weapons. They carried elite soldiers from around the world, each chosen for their adaptability and survival skills. The Narani ambassador Kirita insisted on joining the mission. "My people paid in blood for what we know about the Dominion," the ambassador said. "Let me help you use that knowledge." The journey to the Dominion outpost took 2 weeks. It was located on a small moon that served as a monitoring station for that sector of space. According to Narani intelligence, it was lightly defended with only a small garrison. "Perfect for a test run," Diana said as they approached, her security team ready for the coming fight. What they found shocked them all. The Dominion species were physically imposing, taller than humans, with stronger-looking bodies. But their movements seemed slow, deliberate. They relied heavily on technology rather than physical ability. "They evolved on worlds with minimal threats," explained Kirita, watching the surveillance feeds. "Their home planets have stable climates, no dangerous predators, few natural disasters. They never developed the survival instincts your species has." The human strike teams moved in quickly. They discovered something remarkable. The Dominion soldiers were unprepared for environments humans considered merely uncomfortable. When the Earth forces cut power to the outpost's life support systems, the Dominion troops began to panic. "They can't handle the temperature drop," reported one of Diana's sergeants over the comm. "They're struggling to breathe in the thinner air." Jack watched as the human soldiers adapted to conditions that they found challenging but manageable. Meanwhile, the Dominion forces were falling back, some even collapsing. "They've never had to fight while uncomfortable," Diana realized. "They've never had to push through pain or environmental stress." The battle was over in less than 3 hours. The Dominion outpost fell with minimal human casualties. The prisoners they took seemed genuinely shocked that humans could function in conditions they considered life-threatening. "They breathe poison," one captured Dominion officer exclaimed when seeing humans operating without full environmental suits in what was, to humans, just slightly stale air. Back on the Dauntless, Jack compiled his report for Earth Command. "The Dominion has significant technological advantages," he wrote. "Their weapons are more advanced and their ships are faster. But they have a critical weakness: they have no endurance. They've never evolved to withstand hardship." Olivia, monitoring Dominion communications, suddenly called out, "Captain, I'm picking up distress signals from the outpost to other Dominion facilities. Listen to this." She played the translated message over the bridge speakers. "Retreat. The Deathworlders are unstoppable. They breathe poison and walk through fire. They continue fighting after injuries that should be fatal." A chill ran through the bridge as the crew realized how the Dominion saw them. "They're afraid of us," Diana said quietly, her usual confidence replaced by an uncomfortable realization. "Good," replied Admiral Miller, who had been listening from his command chair. "Fear might make them reconsider genocide as foreign policy." Over the next month, similar reports came in from other human strike teams. The pattern was the same everywhere. The Dominion forces had superior technology but fell apart when faced with environmental challenges or sustained combat. In a secure bunker beneath Geneva, the Earth Defense Council reviewed the findings. "They've never faced natural selection," explained Dr. Henry Clark to the assembled leaders. "They've never had to fight for their lives against their environment. Earth's harsh conditions created humans who can endure pain, adapt to new environments, and keep fighting when injured." "So what's our strategy?" asked the Russian president. Jack, invited to speak due to his frontline experience, stood up. We use what makes us different: our adaptability, our endurance, our ability to fight in conditions they consider impossible. He pulled up a star map showing Dominion territory. They have more ships and better technology, but we have millions of soldiers who grew up on a world that would kill most aliens instantly. We need to make this a ground war wherever possible. Get close. Make it personal. Force them to fight in environments they can't handle. The council members nodded slowly, understanding what needed to be done. We aren't just fighting for the Narani anymore, Jack continued. We're fighting for ourselves, for our future among the stars. As the meeting ended, the president of the African Union asked one final question. What should we call this conflict? Admiral. Miller looked at the Narani ambassador, then back at the council. The aliens call us Deathworlders, so let's call it what it is: the Deathworlders War. The conflict that followed became known throughout the galaxy as the Deathworlders War. Within 6 months, humanity had moved from a peaceful spacefaring civilization to a military force unlike anything the Dominion had ever faced. Jack's promotion to fleet captain put him in charge of 20 ships, including the upgraded Dauntless. His fleet was assigned to strike deep into Dominion territory, targeting their supply bases and manufacturing centers. Samantha led a separate fleet focused on disrupting Dominion supply lines, while Alan commanded a liberation force with the mission of freeing planets under Dominion control. Remember, Jack told his crew before their first major operation, we aren't just fighting for Earth or for the Narani. Every world the Dominion has marked for sanitation is counting on us, whether they know it or not. The early battles revealed a pattern that gave humanity hope. While the Dominion had superior technology, they had critical weaknesses. Their soldiers couldn't function in environments humans found merely uncomfortable. They struggled to adapt to changing battle conditions. And perhaps most importantly, they had never faced an enemy that kept fighting when wounded or surrounded. It's like they expect us to give up when things get hard, Diana said, after a particularly difficult ground operation. Her uniform was torn and dirty, a bandage wrapped around her arm where a Dominion energy weapon had grazed her. Despite the injury, she had led her team to victory. That's because giving up is what they would do, replied Jack. They've never had to fight through pain or push past their limits. We've been doing that our entire evolutionary history. As the war expanded, humanity found allies among other species targeted by the Dominion. Refugees from a dozen worlds joined, the human fleets offering knowledge about Dominion tactics and technology. Some even joined human ground forces, though they required special equipment to operate in conditions humans took for granted. A pattern emerged in these allied species. They all came from worlds far gentler than Earth. They marveled at humans' ability to ignore pain, go without sleep for days, or adapt to toxic atmospheres. Some were terrified by these same abilities, but all were grateful to have Deathworlders on their side. 6 months into the war, Jack's fleet achieved a major victory at the Battle of Talon's Edge, a key Dominion shipyard. While the Dominion expected a standard space battle, Jack had other ideas. They think in terms of ship-to-ship combat, he explained to his captains. We're going to think like Deathworlders. Instead of engaging the Dominion fleet directly, human ships launched hundreds of small, stealthy pods. Each contained 6 Special Forces soldiers in advanced environmental suits. While the Dominion ships focused on the human fleet, these pods attached to their hulls like tiny parasites. The soldiers cut their way inside and fought through the ship's corridors. The Dominion crews, unused to intruders on their vessels and unprepared for close combat, fell quickly. Within hours, 17 Dominion warships had been captured intact. They never imagined we would board their ships, Jack said as he toured one of the captured vessels. They thought the vacuum of space would protect them. The Dominion leadership, for the first time in their history, faced an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm with technology. Reports from the front lines filled them with growing dread. The humans fight while bleeding. They continue advancing through toxic gas. They operate in radiation zones without protection. They can go days without sleep. The turning point of the war came 9 months after it began. Intelligence gathered by Olivia and her communications Team revealed that the Dominion's governing council would be gathering at a space station called Nexus to coordinate their response to the human threat. This was the first time all 5 Dominion species leaders would be in one location. "This is our chance," Jack told the War Council back on Earth. One strike could end this war. The plan they developed was daring. While a large human fleet would engage the Dominion's defensive forces around Nexus Station, a small team would infiltrate the station itself. Their mission: capture the Dominion leadership alive. Diana volunteered to lead the strike team. "My people have fought in every environment. On Earth," she said, "deserts, mountains, jungles, Arctic ice. We know how to adapt and survive. That's what we need for this mission." The battle began with what appeared to be a straightforward attack. Human ships engaged Dominion defenses in a massive space battle around Nexus Station. The Dominion commanders focused all their attention on this threat, not realizing it was a distraction. Meanwhile, Diana's team approached the station from its blind side in a ship designed to look like space debris. They reached the outer hull and prepared for the most dangerous part of their mission. "Suit sealed," Diana ordered as they gathered in the airlock. "Remember, we have 30 minutes to reach the council chamber once we're inside." "What about the station's defenses?" asked one of her soldiers. "The internal security systems?" Diana smiled grimly. "They've already been compromised. In the days before the attack, Olivia had worked with Nerani technicians to create a computer virus that would disable Nexus Station's life support systems in certain sections. Not enough to kill anyone, but enough to create chaos and force the Dominion leaders to rely on their personal protection systems." When Diana's team blasted through the hull and entered the station, they found exactly what they had planned for: confusion, emergency alarms, and Dominion soldiers struggling to function in deteriorating conditions. "They're not used to this," Diana told her team as they moved quickly through the corridors. "We are." The Dominion guards at the council chamber were shocked when human soldiers emerged from what they considered lethal environmental conditions. They fired their weapons, but Diana's team had studied Dominion technology and knew how to counter it. Within minutes, they breached the chamber where the 5 Dominion leaders had gathered. "What are you?" asked the lead counselor, a tall gray being with 6 eyes that stared at Diana in horror. "How can you survive in these conditions?" "We're humans," Diana replied simply. "Deathworlders, and this war ends today." The capture of the Dominion leadership ended the conflict in a single decisive action. With their central command structure in human hands, Dominion forces across the galaxy found themselves without direction. Many surrendered rather than face human soldiers in combat. In the aftermath, a new interstellar accord was formed. The Nerani and other peaceful species were protected under the Treaty of Earth, which established recognized borders and mutual defense pacts. The Dominion was disbanded, its member species forced to acknowledge the sovereignty of those they had once deemed expendable. 3 months after the war ended, Jack stood on the observation deck of the Dauntless, watching the reconstruction efforts on a formerly Nerani world. Blue-green plants were already growing where once there had been only ash and ruin. Olivia joined him at the window. "They're calling us heroes now," she said quietly. "Saviors of the galaxy." "They called us demons." "First," Jack reminded her, "they feared what we are." Henry approached, his tablet filled with data from his latest xenobiology studies. "It's fascinating. Most sentient species evolved in protected environments with stable climates and few predators. We're the anomaly, forged by hardship, danger, and struggle." "So Earth really is a death world?" asked Jack. "To them, absolutely," Henry confirmed. "But that's what made us strong enough to save them. Our harshest challenges became our greatest advantages." Jack watched the stars beyond the window, thinking of the SOS that had changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. Earth was no longer alone, no longer just another planet reaching for the stars. It was now known as the home of Deathworlders, beings that other species both feared and respected. "Let's hope the galaxy never needs Deathworlders again," he said. Diana joined them, her arm still healing from a wound received during the final battle. "But if they do, we'll answer the call," Olivia finished. As the Dauntless turned toward home carrying the heroes of the Deathworlders' war, a message spread across the galaxy. The beings from Earth, the fearsome Deathworlders, had used their strength not to conquer, but to protect. Perhaps there was something to be learned from these strange creatures who turned the very hardships of their evolution into the salvation of others. And on thousands of worlds, when the stars appeared in alien skies, they looked toward the small, yellow sun that harbored the death world called Earth, and for the first time in galactic history, that gaze held not just fear, but gratitude.